Hello and welcome to a total economic impact webinar on the ROI from implementing a Nutanix solution for end user computing. Today's webinar is sponsored by Nutanix and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech Media and I'm excited to be your moderator for this timely discussion. Now, before we get to today's great content, we do have a few housekeeping items that will help you get the most out of this session. First off, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in your webinar control panel. Not only will we have team members responding to questions during the live event, but we'll also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll discuss in greater detail some of the top questions that you ask. That Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues that you might be experiencing. So a browser refresh will fix most audio, video, or slide advancement issues, but if that doesn't work, just let us know there in the Q&A and we'll provide further technical assistance. Now, second, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we're offering several resources, and I'd especially like to call your attention to links for a Nutanix test drive that you'll hear more about later, and to the Total Economic Impact Report from Forrester about Nutanix for end user computing solutions, which is the foundation for a lot of the discussion today. So I encourage you to access those resources now and share them with your friends and your colleagues. Third, at the end of this webinar event, we will be awarding a $250 Best Buy gift card to one lucky registrant. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for the prize. Official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in your handout section as well. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll find the prize T's and C's link there. Now, finally, one of the best benefits of this event is the opportunity to ask a question of our expert presenters. And so to help encourage your questions, we have a special additional prize for you. That's another Best Buy gift card, this one for $50 for the best question. So after the event is over, we'll look at all the questions that came in, pick out the very best one, and contact that prize winner. So with that, let's get to today's panel discussion. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our presenters today. We have Sean Donahue, who's a Senior Solutions Marketing Manager for Nutanix. We have Courteney O'Connor, a consultant with Forrester Research. And we have William McKeon-White, who's an analyst with Forrester. So I'm going to bring Sean on here to get us started. Sean, welcome.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Thank you very much. This is, I am so super excited to be on this panel and to be introducing these presenters and this case study that Forrester worked on. And as Scott said, I am joined here today on this webinar, the title of which is the Total Economic Impact of Nutanix for End User Computing. My co-panelists here and co-presenters are literally, it's like the Tom Brady and Julian Edelman of webinars. I am joined here today by Courteney O'Connor and Will McKeon-White, both of Forrester, and I am thrilled to be sharing the virtual stage with these two rock stars. It is amazing. And of course, this is the Total Economic, or TEI, of Nutanix for End User Compute, or EUC. And if you thought the title was exciting and gripping, just wait until you get into and we get into the content. But I want to start with a little bit about Nutanix, because this is about the TEI of Nutanix and EUC. And like I like to say to my friends, I can't tell you how many times I've said this at cocktail parties and gatherings, you know, Nutanix, it's our platform provides simplicity, choice, flexibility when managing your on-premises and cloud operations. And that is so true. We're demonstrating that customers can set up once and seamlessly adapt their operational model as their business evolves. And that's critical. And that's what brings us to a hybrid multi-cloud world. And we are all about hybrid multi-cloud. But what speaks volumes to that is that Nutanix has that industry-leading NPS, called Net Promoter Score, of greater than 90. And that's what helps drive a strong retention rate for our loyal customers and our return customers. And it is those return customers that are the best part of Nutanix. So if you are sitting out there and you are one of our customers, I want to thank you for that, because you really are the best part of Nutanix. And at our core, in our DNA, is to radically simplify how our customers run apps and manage data. And we are, I like to say, and my friends will attest to this, we are the underpinning, the fabric of how modern business runs and how you can succeed. So I just want to mention that a little bit about Nutanix as we venture into this. And I also want to point out, I am legally obligated to cover an agenda. It is a requirement in the people that moderate and enforce the webinar laws of the internet require me to cover an agenda. So what we're going to talk about here today, and I am going to really get through this so that we can bring our speakers on, because I just love and admire these speakers so much. We've got a market overview. Who doesn't like that? And then what is TEI? Everybody talks about it. You know, we all talk about TEI, the total economic impact. But what is it? I can't wait to roll up our sleeves and get into that. And then buckle your seatbelt, because we're going on a customer journey. And who doesn't love that customer journey with the highs and the lows and the story arc that we create around it? And then we're going to dive into the case study results. That's going to be great. We're going to have some numbers. So if you like numbers and you're into stats, this is the part for you. And then pull up a lawn chair, because we're going to sit around the campfire and we're going to have a fireside chat, and we're going to answer some Q&A along with that. So without further ado, and I know you're all sitting on the edge of your seat and you're saying, bring on Courteney, because we want to hear about and we want to get into the disclosures. So Courteney, welcome to the virtual stage.
Thank you so much for having me, Nutanix. It's an honor to be here. We're gonna have a lot of fun. Before we have fun though, a little less fun, the disclaimers, the legalese. Quick point of information for you all. As a consultant with Forrester's Total Economic Impact practice, I and my colleague, Veronica Isles, the study author, had the honor of helping to deliver this study for Nutanix for end user computing. So just take a moment, please, to appreciate what a TEI is not before we really get into what it is. It's really important to note, sorry, it's not an endorsement of Nutanix. It is not a prediction of what you will get in terms of an ROI. It is not a detailed comparison guide for scoping and for pricing. This is a framework. It's a narrative. It's got really great analysis. We strongly advise you to apply it to your specific situation. Again, this is not a prediction of results. Now, as an analyst, Will here covers the entire market for this type of solution, among so many other things. What doesn't Will cover? But today, Will's going to share some insights from this specific market research. Then he's going to do his best Homer Simpson impression and disappear into the hedge while Sean and I discuss the specifics of this solution set. Then we'll invite him in for some broader discussion where he's allowed later on. Sound good, Will?
Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you for the introduction. So hi, folks. Great to meet you all, and thank you, Sean and Courteney, for the intro. I apologize. I'm the last of the new talking heads. I swear there won't be a test on any of our names. But as they've mentioned, my name is Will McKeon-White, and I'm an analyst on Forrester's TAD team, covering modern technology operations. So what really are the tools and tech you need to make your employees actually successful and able to do their jobs? And one component of that, and being a research analyst in this field, I've had the, I don't necessarily want to say privilege, but the opportunity of watching how EUC priorities have evolved over the last few years. I don't want to say necessarily privilege, because I've been witness to the massive amount of hard work that has gone into many of these strategies that are constantly being upended. And so to provide you with some additional lead time and to give some additional insights as to what we've been seeing in the market and what you should be prioritizing over the next few years, I wanted to put together this quick list of what we're seeing and how to start to begin to solve for some of this. So to quickly summarize what is different this year than the previous three, in 2023, we're almost seeing a return to form, if you will, where end user compute teams are once again split between multiple different priorities that are on the surface immediately contradictory. Where in previous years, it was very much focused on getting people back to functioning, enabling remote work, securing remote work, and other versions of that, making it less onerous on the employees. Now everybody's being told, do this all simultaneously at the same time. So we've come back to almost a triad of tension, if you will, where organizations are being told, improve employee experience, reduce the cost of this, and improve our overall security posture, all at the same time. And no, you don't get any additional budget to do any of this. So I wanted to give you some tips for how you can start to go about achieving all three of these goals in a way that doesn't necessarily come at the cost of any of them. First of them being improving employee experience. And if you are not doing this already today, if this isn't a top priority, it is something I would very much recommend putting to the top of that list, because we've seen some fairly alarming data that shows that overall employees are not happy with the overall experience of their environments that they're receiving today. Today, around 64% of employees report avoiding their service desk, and 65% of employees report having long-running technology issues that IT cannot fix. So things are a little bit broken for employees because, and I want to say this isn't necessarily any fault of IT, which is somewhat of a bizarre statement to come after that data. But what we found is when employees interact with IT folks, they're usually actually very satisfied with the outcomes. But there's so many things going wrong so frequently in so many different ways, they don't really know what to prioritize. And so they kind of sit there in silence, figure IT should know what's happening. And then when an issue finally does occur, they then go and flag that to IT because they're no longer able to do work. So when people are talking to you, they are completely unable to be functional. And of course, there's a few exceptions to that rule, as there always are. But by and large, what we've found are employees are suffering in silence. And what this can look like in production is a federal government organization once found that their boot time of devices was about 30 minutes, which is horrifying and startling. But when they started to explicitly drill down on employee experience and to try to start measuring this from end to end, whether it was on device, whether it was on application, even if it was after a transaction they had had with the help desk, having all of these different points of data to be able to start to piece together a full employee experience journey and to get this end to end, that's when they were able to start to uncover, like, oh, this is broken, and it's not going to get better unless we go out there and fix it. And so this is why we've seen so many organizations prioritizing this, because not only does it help improve the overall employee experience, but then it also actually, and I apologize, I'm going to go a bit out of order here, it also helps improve security, where suddenly people are starting to come to you identifying where these problems could start to be occurring when they recognize that you are there to help them. So when you've started to build that trust with your employees, not only does that improve the security posture, but you've also started to get better vision into where everything is. In the case of the federal government example, if I'm remembering the case correctly, it was due to bad or misconfigured drivers that were suddenly conflicting. And if you're not able to monitor the health of all of your environment, whether it's the device, whether it's the driver, whether it's a virtualized environment, whether it's any combination of whatever it is your employees are using, you're going to have a visibility gap. And if you're not able to centralize any of your management or start to centralize it, nothing is ever going to be just in one interface. But if you have dozens of different interfaces, each telling you different pieces of information, you're suddenly going to be unable to effectively identify what your security posture really is. And that's just one way to start to reduce down just the number of different things that can be going wrong. And in the long term, we very much recommend pairing this with a zero trust strategy. But this is one of the easy ways where your IT organization can take on some of the lower hanging fruit, which is just a device vulnerability that is known, but you didn't patch it because you didn't know that that was a device that was then vulnerable. And finally, reducing cost is also very much a driving concern for every organization on the planet these days, it feels like. But what is so difficult about this is you're being told to improve EX and improve security simultaneously with no additional budget, which is kind of impossible. So what we've started to see organizations doing is getting better at accounting for what their organization needs, with the main mechanism they use to do that being end user compute personas. Because one size doesn't fit all and cheapest doesn't fit all, and both of those approaches will ultimately cost you more money in the long run, and creating further out-of-band requests, creating further exceptions, compounding those security problems, and overall degrading employee experience. And so when you start to use some of these things like personas, you start to get a more properly scoped environment, allowing you to actually right-size it, saving money in terms of not over-providing devices for people who don't need it, allowing you to provide out or avoiding those sort of out-of-band purchases for when people need more power or more performance, and overall just providing a better experience for people who are doing different things in your environment. And I realize this is all very easy for me to say, and these are very large projects, each individually, all three of them taking potentially multiple years to accomplish. But if you need a header for your strategy and to figure out what to start to improve on, these are the three things that we've found organizations can start to achieve and start to make progress on over the coming months and years, resulting in these overall better outcomes for your end user compute strategy. But this is not the most important thing that we're going to be sharing today. In fact, the most important thing is the data behind not just some of this, but also what are organizations seeing when it comes to the TEI. And so with that being said, I'm William McKeon-White. I'll be back doing my best Homer Simpson impersonation for the moment. I'll be back for the fireside chat. But over to you, Courtney.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I'll share the screen with our friend Sean if he's around.
I'm still here. I've taken notes on what Will was discussing and some things that stuck out to me. And I know I don't want to get us off track. We obviously want to stay to the program, but Will talking about the employee experience, 64% avoiding the service desk. That's just amazing to me, because if you've been in IT as long as I have, the employee experience didn't matter to us back in the day, but now it is paramount that the employee have a good experience, because it is truly very, very important, because it can lead to attrition and employees leaving if they have a bad experience with their technology. And gone are the days, I like to say, gone are the days where we gave them a beige box under their desk and that was what they got, and they used what we gave them and that was it. But now shadow IT and everything is a real thing. But Courtney, that's not what has been off the top of my mind. That's not what's scratching the old brain here.
Yeah, but that's Will's that's another one of Will's wheelhouses, is looking at the impact of employee experience on organizations writ large. I've worked with him on one of those in the past, so it's definitely relevant and germane. But yeah, let's talk TEI, right?
Absolutely, I want to acknowledge we have got some amazing people. They're chatting in already in the Q&A, where they're from. So hello, everybody, Maryland, Illinois, Canada, all over the place. So
awesome.
So hey, back to everybody. But Courtney, why the TEI? Why Forrester, and why now?
I love this question. I think in times of uncertainty, people really need facts to inform big decisions. And going from 3-tier architecture to VDI is a pretty big decision. You may have seen Sequoia Capital's deck last year. This is a crucible moment where we have to justify our value proposition. Another nerd reference, I listened to the Hard Fork podcast. They talk about zero interest rate phenomena. You don't want your solution to appear to be a zero interest rate phenomena. You want it to be something that really proves its value out. And that's something that the total economic impact methodology that Forrester has been using has been helping our clients to do for nearly 25 years, maybe more at this point. And we do this because in one of our many surveys, we found that over 90% of decision makers say that it's important or very important for them to have a next level business case that makes an economic justification for such an investment. So yeah, I think that's why.
Yeah. And what do we mean? And you touched on it already, but I really want to drill into it a little bit more. But what do we mean when we say the TEI framework?
Sure. Yeah.
Like I'm off the street. What do we mean by that?
Yeah, and I live and breathe this. It becomes Terminator vision at some point where you start quantifying everything around you as soon as you have downtime. But we think about, beyond your total cost of ownership, beyond your ROI, which is really straightforward. You think about your quantified benefits minus your costs, all divided by your costs. That's your ROI. We add more to it. I don't want to say heavily risk adjust, but we really do look at every element of our financial model to make sure we're taking into account the experience that, generally customers might have. That's why we lean on our really amazing analyst core for some research to really ground truth that. And overall, we come up with a pretty conservative assessment. But really importantly, it's based in customer feedback. And we'll, I think, discuss that a lot coming up.
We will, and I really do want to get into that and the customer feedback. I mean, I've read, so for anybody who's out there listening, the TEI case study is available and it is published so that you can get your hands on it and read the entire thing. It is just some amazing numbers, some amazing stats that are in there. And I know you already talked about it, but just in the objectives of the framework itself. Can you just kind of give me the top 2 or 3 that you mentioned?
Yeah, I would say that just kind of to bubble it up even further, the framework is to help me serve almost as a medium, right? Like I'm channeling the voice of the customer and helping them to understand what I call the $ and percentage point impacts of this solution on your business environment. So keep it really high level there, and we'll dig down into what that means.
Yeah. And okay, so we're moving to the next slide. Here we go. Buckle up, buckle your seatbelt, everybody grab your handle, because here we come, because this is the one that gets us into the actual numbers themselves and what Forrester has determined to be that 3-year impact. And Courtney, right out of the gate, I have to tell you, my key highlights, the ones that get me the most excited are maybe, and then I invite everybody else, if you've read the case study, put your key highlights into either the Q&A panel, or you can tweet me at Shondo40. Tweet me your key highlights, because some of the ones that jump out to me, the 20 hours per user per year savings. I mean, that is just, if I could, I'm in marketing, right? Okay. So 20 hours, that's a full week. That's a full week for us in marketing.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, so we're saving an entire week. There's a 30% reduction in capital expenses when we're looking at the 3-tier legacy infrastructure and the $500 savings. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. And I know I'm stealing some of your thunder, Courtney.
all the
And
thunder is going to be a nice, tepid breeze by the time I come
well,
around.
my nickname in high school was Sean Thunder Stealer Donahue, so it comes naturally. So it's the $500 savings with the thin clients. And Courtney, just for you, I went out and I got a prop, not
That's the
necessarily a thin client. It's the Chromebook. So it is items like that. But anyways, those are just some of my key highlights. But I really wanted to get your key highlights.
That's the TEI. That's it. You used your Terminator vision, you used your value assessment, and you really drilled down. I think that those are the key levers. And I keep saying we're gonna drill down, but it is worth noting for the composite organization, which we'll describe to you. This is approximately $76 million in overall benefits before you take into the costs. When you do take into the cost, you're making back this composite organization, I should say, is making back this investment and then 123%. So we do like to let the customers speak for themselves. I think this really says it all. Because Nutanix is hyper converged, we have the storage, compute, and networking all in one stack. We're going to see how that plays out in many ways throughout this value story. It's really important.
It is, and the other thing that speaks to that, and that's simplicity and the simplified management, and it's in the composite organization, freeing up 14 technical resources to work on more mission critical projects as well. So did I steal more thunder?
I did.
I
we'll
did
talk
it
about
again.
All this later, folks.
Okay. So again, the case study is available for everybody to download it. And I've got a handy little URL. Go to Nutanix.com. You can get the case study yourself. But there it is right there. The companies that Forrester interviewed. I know that we can't name them. Okay. Right. Privacy, and it's just the respectful thing to do. But what kind of companies did Forrester interview for it?
Sean, you're always so demure. Yes, let's understand these customers a little bit better. These folks who guided us through their use of Nutanix for EUC and how their organizations derive value. So these are pretty big companies. They're sprawling. So we have telecom, a couple of those, financial services, health insurance. So think sprawling, distributed, complex, lots of users, contractors, very important user experience, lots of infrastructure. The people with whom we spoke, engineers, they're in the infrastructure, they're admins, they know all the ins and outs. We looked at companies that were based in the United States, but worked around the world generally. Revenues, we had a big end and a lower end. On that bigger end, it ranged from 80 to 130 billion with a B. And at the lower end, just over $1 billion. So really a good spread. You can see throughout the study, different quotes from different representatives. You can start to look for your more specific experience through those data points. But then in terms of resourcing, we had, again, at the high end, between 75,000 and 120,000 full-time employees, and 1,200 to 8,000 at the lower end. However, we should note that contractors were also a really big part of this story, especially as you can see for the telecom organizations. Both of those had about 70 to 75,000 contractors, and the health insurance company had some too.
Okay. Excellent. And then for the sake of the case study itself, Forrester created a composite of these interviewed companies. There it is right there. I was teeing you up for that slide. Tell me about that composite organization.
I'd love to. This is an essential part of our methodology. I think of this as the main character. This is the mannequin. It's showing you the full Nutanix outfit and how it fits. And if you want to see it on a person, ask Sean, because he's got the suit. I don't know why he didn't wear it today. So in any event, the financial model, the composite, is all going to look different than how the outfit's going to look on you. We all have different measurements. But this mannequin, this composite organization, is hopefully going to help provide at least a framework for understanding, how to fill out this VDI look that you're looking for.
Gotcha.
So we do keep this real. These are real life customers with actual organizations in mind. So this main character, you'll see we settled on a $40 billion organization with a $1.2 billion IT budget. The organization employs 60,000 employees and 20,000 contractors for a total of 80,000 resources. And then nestled within that IT budget is the investment with Nutanix for end user computing, which includes the purchase of over 750 nodes over the course of 3 years. That changes year over year, and supports up to 39,000 VDI users by year 3. So we see a ramp up in the adoption of the model there.
That's that is an amazing, and I really appreciated the composite organization when I was reading through it. It gives you a good framework and a good structure, a good modeling, if I can use that term. But Courtney, the next piece that we're talking about here is probably, I know I keep saying it, but probably my favorite because, I skipped right over it, because it's a donut graph. And who doesn't love donuts?
Homer Simpson, again.
Homer Simpson again here. But tell me, in digging into it, what's the 55% EUC time savings? What's that translate into?
Sure. So the majority of benefits are in fact with this end user time savings. And when you're impacting so many people across your organization every single day, even if it feels something small, like a couple of minutes faster booting up, really extrapolates. A few minutes here really add up. We also we'll talk about some of the other things like CapEx, the lower CapEx and other VDI, reduced time to provision and everything. But really that hero statement up front, first and foremost, is that I think it totals out to be about $41 million of that 76 is just looking at time saved. So first and foremost, we do need to think about the number of people that are using virtual desktops. We mentioned just shortly ago, there's 60,000 employees, 20,000 contractors. The benefit, I think you spoiled this a little bit earlier, is that those who are using this VDI environment are saving approximately 13 minutes per day. And I believe that's your 20-hour work week equivalent, right, Mr. Marketing? Right. That comes from a couple of really strong data points. One customer told us our login times have already decreased on average about 25% across the board for end users. And another one said the boot times have improved for virtual machines from 3 minutes to under a minute. And in provisioning services, that's phenomenal. I'm not in provisioning services, so I take this customer's word for it.
Okay. I do too. Go ahead.
I want to say real quick, not everyone is going to see this, right? They're not going to get it all the time or even at all necessarily. This is all going to be based on your business needs. Your organization's VDI adoption curve is going to look very different. And even within this particular organization, we have different ramp ups for the full-time employees versus the contractors. It's wonky, it's nerdy. It helps us figure out, how to attribute value to Nutanix. And that's a little into the weeds. I can see you're glazing over.
No, I'm not. I'm wondering if I can share a personal experience. Is that
please.
allowed? Okay. So and others can as well. If you, I know I look like the picture of health, Courtney, but I do go to the doctor regularly, and one of the things that I have noticed over time is when the clinician or physician enters into the office, the exam room, the amount of time that it takes for them to actually launch and load the virtual desktop to get into the electronic healthcare record system that they're using. That is one thing that I use as kind of the barometer to see the true impact of that time savings. So if you're sitting there while the clinician is loading the desktop, we know that that time is truly money, and it is costing, and it can be an issue. So that's one of the benefits that you just talked to, that 55% time savings. That's one of the ones that impacted me the most. But what do you say we move to the next slide?
Yeah.
Because the next slide is those additional benefits for using EUC. Do you want to take the lead, and then I'll tell you what my favorite one is?
Sure. Am I reading them all or picking my favorite?
It's pick your favorites, and then I'll pick my favorites. How about that?
Okay.
And if they match, they match.
We already talked about downtime and users. I do love the reduced help desk calls. I love anything that kind of cascades throughout the organization. But I have to say, I love security. I love sustainability. I love those bottom two.
Okay, I love them as well. And now is the time for my favorite saying, which is, like I always say, when we talk about security and your security posture, and we could be talking cybersecurity, we could be talking, internal homeland security. But like I always like to say, if you're in IT and you don't lose sleep at night worried about security, you have better medications than I do, because it is top of mind for everyone. I was at a conference a few weeks ago, and it was without a doubt the number one discussion topic amongst all of these CIOs and, of course, CISOs. That would make sense.
Yeah.
The sustainability, I know we're going to talk about that in just a second. The sustainability benefits, and I don't want to steal the thunder again. It seems like I'm doing that. And I know it's my nature, but it's my natural.
Yeah.
It's my natural zeal and enthusiasm for the TEI case study. It is. But that, I got to talk about the partnership that Nutanix has with Citrix, the leader, of course, virtual apps and desktops. And it's not just a marketing partnership. And I want to make sure that we emphasize that to everybody as well. It's not just a marketing partnership. It is actually an integration level partnership where the engineering teams between Citrix and Nutanix get together. I think it's once every 2 weeks, and talk about roadmap futures and where we can improve our integration and working relationships with things like Citrix Studio and Citrix PVS and the provisioning services that you just discussed. But that sustainability, it is one of those things that pops up because it is growing in momentum. It is growing in interest and growing in, I don't want to say popularity, growing in efficacy, my word of the day.
This is urgency.
Urgency. Thank you. That's the better word.
Yeah.
That's the better word.
I got you.
So let's talk about it.
I took to the next slide because I think that, this is something that Forrester thinks very, very, very deeply about in a lot of different ways. We think about being future fit, being creative, adaptive, and resilient, and all of those things are required in order to take on a more sustainable kind of business practice. What I love about this particular TEI is that it does have very specific reductions in hardware and physical footprint. And we have a really good research base that talks about when you're taking large data centers or even just your laptops, if the more you can reduce that footprint, the more you're reducing so much. Okay, so you're reducing your physical sprawl, you're saving on rent, you're saving on utilities for all of that cooling and heating. All of that cooling and heating, refrigerants, those are scope 1 emissions for the data center itself. Those are really nasty things. And then thinking about just an organization that is seeking its own data center space, that's in their own scope 3 emissions. So if you're working with partners that are taking their own approach to power and computing really seriously and taking that perspective, then you're automatically kind of buying into a more future fit and sustainable approach. And then you're thinking about like the e-waste. You're thinking about the embodied carbon in a lot of this hardware, and just so many ways that this can cascade throughout an organization, and in ways that make real business sense. And in a time where there's a house insurance market failure, I don't think we can, skirt around the fact that climate change is impacting day-to-day operations and requires serious effort to adapt and mitigate.
Right. And this isn't just for my granola eating friends who grow avocados in their own backyard. You know who you are, and I'm talking to you. This is for everybody. And I love the fact that you introduced the housing insurance crisis, and it's headlines on the nightly news every night. But you know what else stuck out? No, that's not the right word at all. You know what else stuck out to me on this slide was the unlocking new virtual desktop use cases with Nutanix GPU support. That one stuck out because if you're sitting there thinking, well, GPUs are just for CAD CAM operations, 3D modeling, things like that, and I need high-end power, consumption devices for that. That's not true, because with virtual GPUs, you can actually run those GPU intensive applications on even a Chromebook for 3D modeling of a heart or something like that.
Yeah.
The prop is coming in handy here. But also, it's not just the CAD CAM operations that are taking the GPU cycles. It's everything. It's Office 365. It's your Chrome browser. It's your unified communication systems, your Teams, your Zooms. Everything is just taking up so much GPU space. So it's great that Nutanix has vGPU capabilities and partners with companies like NVIDIA and AMD to bring that to fruition. So that was the other thing that stuck out, if I was to use proper English, that stuck out to me on this slide. But Courtney, this next one is kind of a recap slide.
Yeah, it's a good one. I think we talked a lot about the end user time savings. Please do dig into the study further. The reduction in capital spending, that's very related to the sustainability related benefits we were just talking about. Thin devices, hey, we're very body positive here, and we're feeling the love for these thin devices because they're saving, the results will vary. It could be 150, could be more than 500. We modeled 500 based on the customer feedback. And then the last two, really just thinking about that simplicity, the consolidation, going from 3-tier and all the effort that goes into that, and to virtual GPUs, who knew? It's really a lot of different ways you can look at your operation and see how this can have an impact.
Yeah. And it is great. And again, I know I've said it before, and you've heard it before on this webinar. The case study is available, and I'm gonna rank it. I'm gonna tell you right now, Courtney, on my next to my reading chair in my den, as I sit there. Yeah, here I have another prop for you as well. As I sit in my reading chair with my pipe and my dog at my side, my top authors are Hemingway, Grisham, and Forrester, and those are my top ones. And I read this TEI case study religiously and pull out those nuggets of gold. But again, Courtney, can we bring Will back? Is Will still in the wings of the stage? Because I have people sliding into my DMs with questions, and I thought I'd throw them out to you guys as we pull up our little mats and sit around the campfire and throw some questions. Have a good old chat and some s'mores maybe. And you know what else I just saw? Instead of s'mores, Rice Krispie treats toasted over a open campfire. I'm going to try it this weekend. But question number one, are you ready? Question number one, the number one question that is sliding in. Talk about sliding. There's Will. Hey, Will, welcome back, buddy.
You set me up for that. I couldn't resist.
Here we go. What were some of the key challenges that that Forrester identified and were repeated even across the customers that were interviewed?
Sure, I'll take that, and then maybe, Will, you can tell me what you hear writ large. So these customers, their baggage, so to speak, included really the traditional siloed three-tiered infrastructure, large distributed support teams. It was just kind of a mess. This led to long provisioning cycles, islands of compute storage, lots of unplanned downtime, and you know what that spells? Poor user X. Get it? X.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, how does that stack up against the market?
So you say a little bit of a mess. I would say, unfortunately, average. Most of the problems from organizations that I remember in our discussions were echoed in most, if not all, of the additional inquiries I've done on VDI. That their previous environments were hard to manage, that they did not necessarily have good visibility across all of their different pieces of infrastructure. It took too long to do anything. So issues I'm very certain everybody on this call has not run into at all in their careers. And so they seem to be very happy with how things have adjusted in those conversations.
Gotcha. Awesome. And another one coming in here. Oh, this person wants to get right down to brass tacks. Let's talk dollars and cents. What were some of the investment objectives?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Primary, as I stated before, consolidation. Let's get from three-tiered to something more manageable and more future fit. This allowed these organizations to meet other objectives, including obviously reducing those costs, but including also to add capacity in a flexible way that would improve scaling. And then kind of from the management perspective, remove those purchasing silos. Will, anything to add on broader trends? No. Cool.
I think you nailed it. I apologize. Right. I'm trying to go back to the data bank.
I think my questions too.
Trying to figure out if there's anything else that they had seen there in terms of benefits, and just general added agility as well was one thing that did leap out there. Yep. One very explicit conversation where they reduced the overall time to provision from potentially months to just hours, which was a significant sanity saver for that team, if I'm remembering that conversation correctly. That one's kind of haunted me.
Are you losing sleep at night, Will? Should we turn this into a support forum for this one?
I think anybody who's an analyst kind of needs that at this point.
All right, we've got another one coming in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just very frequently a lot of my conversations turn into you're doing what with what? And the improvisation is always remarkable and admirable and terrifying.
It is. Yeah. Yep. Another one coming in here. What Yeah, what were some of the points of attraction that the customers were drawn to Nutanix?
Points of attraction, really, I think that ease of management, really fitting into that primary investment objective. And then the desire to reduce their infrastructure footprint, all a key part of it. And then you mentioned the Citrix partnership. I think that also really stood out at a high level for interviewees.
Mm-hmm. Will?
What Courtney said.
Yeah, he can't speak to this one.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Slap on the wrist.
It's okay. I got you.
Good.
Will, any other questions coming in, or?
So we did get a few interesting ones. Let's see. So some of them are easy to tackle. Some of them are much harder to tackle. There's one question.
Pass them all to you, Will.
I think this is the most straightforward one is, can this apply to educational institutions?
I'm not going to answer that for you, Sean, but I'm guessing you can.
Oh, I wasn't sure where I was allowed. I just got my hand slapped, so I was a little nervous. Oh, yes, it absolutely. One of the areas of focus that we work in very strong is state local education, or what we affectionately refer to as SLED. So we have a lot of this same criteria and a lot of these same results even in our education customers. I won't drop the names, so to speak, but there's a very big one out in California. If you're familiar with the Berkeley area, maybe. But like I said, let me pick that name up that I just dropped on the floor here. It absolutely can apply to education institutions. And I have done, as of recently, I've done quite a few sessions with some higher ed institutions on the benefits of hyperconverged infrastructure, and specifically Citrix virtual apps and desktops, or DAS, running on Nutanix. We have another one coming in here from a avid listener. He says, longtime listener, first time caller. Our team is going through a tough choice of choosing hyperconverged solutions. What should be the criteria for choosing hyperconverged? And I'll leave the reference to the area out. I think Courtney and Will both have emphasized that simplicity, and that is really that key. That's where you're going to save the most time from an administrator and from a management. If you can simplify it down into the least number of admin tools that you have to go into. So Nutanix Prism, Nutanix Central are really core tools that you can use in your tool chest to administer the entire network storage compute, but also your virtual machines. And of course, Nutanix Cloud Clusters being able to ease that transition. If you're flirting with the idea, if you're quote unquote cloud curious and looking to expand your data center from an on-prem environment to a hyperscaler or a cloud environment, AWS, Azure, et cetera, then certainly you want to be able to simplify that and make that as easy as possible. So those would be some of my key criteria for choosing HCI. And I know our back is getting up against the wall. I'm going to have to hand it over to Scott in a minute. But Scott, I cannot resist this question here coming in from Saul. He says, do you play the cello? He had to ask. Saul, I'm so glad that you pointed that out. That is actually a double bass. So it's the one bigger than the cello. And that is my 18-year-old son, plays for the symphony, the North Carolina symphony. So that's his spare double bass. You know, every kid's got to have a couple double basses in their repertoire. Who does it? What teenager wouldn't have those? But Scott, I'm gonna before I hand it over to you, I have to point this out, because Sarah Bremner is sitting behind the scenes in the wings, and she's going to absolutely crucify me if I don't mention this. So, a couple of call to actions for those who are listening in today. Don't take my word for it. Go and test it out for yourself. Roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty, and we have these things called test drive. One of them that has my attention the most is a bursting of 2,000 desktops, Citrix desktops, to the AWS cloud with Nutanix cloud clusters. And it only takes, a few minutes. I'm going to say 15 minutes to go through the test drive, but it gives you an actual firsthand experience of what it is like to take that on-prem environment and burst it up into AWS. Azure is soon to come to the test drive near you, and you actually get to experience from step by step along the way. I've done it a few times. It's a great experience, and it gets you up and running, and it's cost free. You don't actually pay for anything. We spin the whole thing up for you. And then the second one, what we've been talking about here today, is the TEI case study by Forrester for Nutanix end user computing. It is available. Here's the hyperlink I promised you: nutanix.com/go/Forrester TEI EUC on Nutanix. I know it just rolls right off the tongue, but trust me, if you go to that link, and you may also get a email. That's the beautiful thing here. Because you attended this webinar, you qualify for a free email, and in that email will be the hyperlink to the case study, and you can read it for yourself. And with that, I know my time is up. I have the Gong Show hook coming in to pull me off stage. I'm going to hand it back to Scott, because I believe you have a prize to give away.
I do.
So,
and
Scott,
Sean, I'm glad
you
mentioned Saul's question, because I was going to ask you that one if you didn't grab it. But Sean, Courtney, Will, thank you so much. It was a great discussion, fun, and a ton of insights there in the fireside chat as well. We really appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having us.
And so the winner of the $250 Best Buy gift card today is Kyle Dermody from Arizona. So congratulations to Kyle Dermody. We'll be in touch to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Nutanix and Forrester for making this event possible. And thanks as always for attending and for your great questions. That concludes today's event. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we hope to see you next time.